What if retribution didn't come with a blade, but with a needle? What if demise arrived not in combat, but in the gentleness of cotton, the quiet of a seam? In 1853, Tennessee, a prosperous family began to perish slowly, inexplicably, their garments flawlessly stitched, concealing something far more sinister. But who was Clara, the enslaved woman wielding the needle? And why did no one anticipate her presence? If you want to follow real stories that transcend time and uncover hidden truths, subscribe to the channel now and enable notifications so you don't miss any of our investigations. The humid Tennessee air of midsummer 1853 clings to the thin cotton dresses swaying on the line in the yard. In the distance, the white-pillared plantation house rises, its windows mirroring the midday sun with cold detachment. Beneath its roof, a family moves through their usual routines, the midday meal. The mistress with her silent sip of tea, the master peering from under his wide-brimmed hat. Around them shadows gather, shadows they cannot identify, cannot see, cannot evade. In the rear building, rows of wooden benches hold the enslaved women, hands busy with needle and thread, eyes downcast, backs bowed under the burden of expectation. Among them is Clara. She is slight, elegant in her posture. Her fingers move with mechanical precision, guiding fine stitches through linen and silk. Her face remains impassive, yet her eyes, deep pools, reflect more than submission. They hold memory. They hold grief. They hold determination. Clara's task is intimate. She hems the mistress's gowns, mends rips in the master's vest, embroiders newborn christening gowns, repairs the children's jackets. Each garment passes through her hands, and each stitch is placed with care. The family members wear clothes bearing her labor, unaware of the silent intent behind each thread. It begins subtly, a faint rash on the mistress's wrist, brushed off as heat or an insect bite. The children complain of chills, then persistent aches despite rest. The master grows irritable, his eyes clouded with a dull haze. The family physician is called, a meticulous man with a handwritten ledger. He examines the symptoms: nausea, dizziness, skin irritation, neurological tremors. He prescribes herbal tonics and rest in shaded rooms. He attributes it to a summer fever sweeping the region, the humidity, or possibly contaminated spring water. No suspicion falls on Clara. Her hands retreat, resume stitching. Her lips stay sealed. Around day 20, the first death occurs. The youngest daughter, pale and still in her bed, no tears herald it, only silence. Then the matriarch, her hair thinning, her skin blistered, her breathing fades. The physician grows uneasy. His diagnosis shifts from fever to poison. He orders the clothes sealed away, takes fabric samples for examination. He notes residues, strange oily patches between folds, subtle discoloration in linings, but chemical analysis is primitive, inconclusive. There are no forensic labs, only instinct against gossip. The mistress, gasping in delirium, murmurs faintly of weightlessness, of fire beneath her skin. The master's appetite vanishes. His restless eyes scan the servants with equal parts fear and curiosity. Clara continues, seated at her bench. An outsider sees nothing unusual in her calm, but rumors slither through the household, linens that burn flesh, odors like bitter almonds, hushed warnings. Do not wear that satin blouse. The seamstress's quarters go unnoticed. No chain ties her to suspicion. She exists in a liminal space, between visibility and invisibility. Her work is her voice. Her silence is her power. Once the children lie in quiet coffins, once the widow's mourning drapes heavily across the halls, whispers emerge. Did the seamstress weave something into the thread? Could the poison have been infused through hidden stitches, or the tuberous oils she might have crushed into linings? No one saw her prepare anything odd, but every corpse wore her patchwork, her monograms, her lace. Rumors grow in whispers. The seamstress was taught by an elder woman. Tales of herbal knowledge passed in hushed sermons of resistance, names of plants that kill when pressed to cloth, dosed subtly, slowly over time. No one outside the quarters confirms it. Clara does not speak. She is described as quiet, obedient, efficient. Books do not record her name. Yet every frayed seam, every mend tightens the suspicion. In that stifling heat, the household retreats into fear. Guests are turned away. Sleep comes fitfully, and Clara stitches on. The house stands still, but it is not peaceful. The air grows heavy, layered with unspoken fear and sickness. Servants move like phantoms, careful not to break the silence. The White family withdraws to their rooms. The The halls, once filled with forced laughter, now echo with footsteps and coughs. Behind closed doors, linen sheets soak with sweat, and strange lesions appear on the skin of those wearing Clara's fine garments. But the true story began long before the bodies failed. Clara's past was a tapestry of wounds and whispers. Born into bondage in North Carolina, she was sold south at 14. The sale followed a disciplinary incident, a vague note in her previous owner's ledger. Rumors, never proven, claimed a boy who harmed her died suddenly, convulsing in the fields before he could cry out. In Tennessee, she arrived quiet, composed. Her skill with cloth spared her from the fields. She was moved to the seamstress quarters under the mistress's direct oversight. What no one knew, what no one cared to know, was that Clara carried more than a needle. In her early years on the new plantation, she formed a quiet bond with an older woman, a midwife named Mara. Mara moved slowly, her eyes clouded with cataracts, but she remembered plants that made men bleed internally. She spoke of ancient ways, of roots and saps that delivered death in slow drips. Mara had seen her own children sold off. Her hands trembled as she passed this knowledge to Clara, not from fear, but from age. Under the pretext of gathering herbs for dyes and washing, Clara learned to find sources of subtle poisons. The White family never questioned her movements. She collected jesuit seeds, dried belladonna berries, scraped resin from wild hemlock. Each had its own potency. Alone, they were dangerous. Combined in precise amounts and infused into fabric linings, they whispered death through the skin's pores. No one suspected the seamstress. Her role was too ordinary, too feminine, too domestic to inspire dread. She stitched in silence. She obeyed. But with each garment she mended, a choice was made. A thread here, a hidden fold there, a lining slightly heavier than necessary. She worked slowly. Time was her ally. Death need not strike swiftly. It was better if it didn't. By midsummer, a strange pattern emerged. Servants who handled the family's clothing too often showed signs of illness. A maid collapsed after wearing a hand-me-down shawl. A stable boy developed ulcers after carrying freshly laundered coats. The plantation doctor suspected environmental toxins, mold or stagnant water in the old well, but nothing fit. The symptoms varied, some rapid, others delayed. The White family dismissed his concerns as superstition. Within the enslaved quarters, whispers traveled differently. They spoke of Clara's hands as blessed or cursed. Some feared her, kept their distance. Others left small offerings at her threshold, thread, beads, roots, not gifts, but acknowledgments. They knew or suspected, but no one spoke openly. The family's decline became undeniable. Their youngest son, once hardy, lost weight rapidly. The master began hallucinating, screaming at shadows, accusing his own children of treason. The mistress stayed in bed, eyes glazed, breath labored. Rumors of witchcraft spread beyond the plantation. A traveling preacher was summoned. He found only sorrow and decay. And Clara, calm, her fingers always busy. One night, the cook claimed she saw Clara speaking to an unseen figure, a shadow by the trees, perhaps Mara's ghost. Questioned, Clara only lowered her eyes and resumed sewing. Her silence held firm. The plantation, once proud, now carried the scent of rot. In its heart, Clara sewed, each stitch a quiet act of defiance, each hemline a veil between retribution and invisibility. By late August, the house no longer echoed with piano music or parlor chatter. What remained was the stifled breath of a home choking on its own silence. The family's decline was no longer a mystery, it was inevitable. One by one, they succumbed to a sickness no doctor could name, no prayer could banish, no servant could ignore. The master, once a figure of control and cruelty, wandered the corridors in confusion. His skin yellowed, eyes sunken and red-rimmed. He muttered names, some living, some long dead, and flinched at his own clothes. He tore off a shirt mid-meal, collapsing into spasms before stunned guests from Alabama. They left that night. His wife, bedridden for weeks, no longer recognized her surroundings. Her skin erupted with oozing sores. A new physician, brought by the overseer, suggested arsenic poisoning, though he admitted it made no sense through the skin. He ordered all fabric removed from sleeping quarters and initiated fumigations. Yet nothing changed. The children, what remained, stayed in their rooms. Their joints ached, gums bled. The eldest son, poised to inherit, refused to leave his bed. When he did, he rambled of insects beneath his skin and fire behind his eyes, clawing his neck until it bled. A nursemaid who tried to calm him was struck and fled that night. The The staff moved differently now. Their eyes avoided the family. They communicated in glances. Some refused to handle the garments. The laundry room, once bustling, was nearly empty. Workers punished for abandoning posts fell ill, their hands covered in unhealing lesions. Those who touched the clothes too often never recovered. Clara, however, remained untouched. She neither coughed nor ached. Her skin was clear. She kept to her corner, sewing steadily. One housemaid, Ellen, confided that Clara had requested a specific plant from the woods months earlier, a bitter-smelling root not used in dyes. At the time, Ellen thought nothing of it. Now she wondered if it was part of this. Was Clara using something unnatural? Late one evening, the overseer's daughter was found unconscious in the parlor. Her skin flushed, breath ragged. She had worn a shawl just repaired by Clara. The overseer, a harsh man with a cruel past, stormed through the house, tearing apart Clara's quarters. He found nothing, just spools of thread, needles, folded fabric. Clara stood silently, arms at her sides, expression unreadable. The next morning, he demanded her confinement, but the master, barely conscious, murmured a refusal. "She's done nothing," he repeated, eyes glassy. That night, a fire broke out in the far shed. It was contained, but fear spread. Some believed the land cursed. Others whispered of spirits, voodoo, a silent rebellion carried out with thread and cloth. And Clara stitched on, her hands calm, her eyes steady. No one dared stop her. The plantation became a place of absences. Windows stayed shuttered against imagined threats. Footsteps no longer echoed, only the occasional shuffle and persistent coughs. Dr. Harold Finch, a physician from Charleston known for tackling feared illnesses, arrived, bringing tension. A man of science, he felt an unease he couldn't explain. His examination was methodical, studying the afflicted, collecting samples, documenting symptoms. But the clothing drew his focus. Every garment worn by the sick showed discoloration along linings, stiff stitching, a faint, bitter odor. Finch isolated the garments, ordering no one wear clothes prepared by the seamstress until further notice. He questioned the overseer and staff about Clara. How long had she worked here? Had anyone seen her mix anything into her work? No one answered directly. Eyes turned away. The silence spoke volumes. Pressure mounted. Whispers turned to accusations. The overseer demanded Clara be brought forward. She stood in the parlor under the oil lamp's flicker, surrounded by sickened eyes and trembling voices. Did she handle strange substances? Did she poison the fabrics? Who taught her? Clara answered, none of it. She looked past them, past their fear. The master, too weak to rise, sent word no action be taken without proof. But proof was elusive. Finch collected fabric samples, attempted crude chemical tests. Results were inconclusive. He suspected a toxin from native plants, but the compound evaded him. Fear outpaced certainty. The staff demanded punishment, whipping, execution, burial alive. The plantation was ruled by dread. They called it a trial. No judges, only the overseer, the physician, and frightened souls. Clara was locked in a storage room beneath the house, where cloth bales and rats lurked. She did not speak, she did not cry. When the cook slipped her food, she reported Clara whispering names no one recognized, or wouldn't admit. Then a storm hit, a violent night. Lightning struck a tree near the house. In the chaos, the storage door was found open. Clara was gone. No trail, no footprints, no sign of escape. The door wasn't broken. Some swore it was never locked. The overseer launched a manhunt, dogs, marshals, but she vanished, leaving fabric scraps and an unfinished garment with the master's monogram, needles still embedded. The family weakened further. One by one, they fell silent. Survivors never recovered. The plantation was abandoned by winter. Some claimed Clara drowned in the nearby creek. Others said she escaped north, aided by those who knew her deeds. Among the enslaved, a story spread of a woman who sowed death not from hatred, but memory. A woman who vanished into legend. More than a century later, the plantation lies in ruin. The house, half swallowed by ivy, roof collapsed, walls blackened, sees few tourists. Those who venture to the overgrown road often turn back, feeling the trees too close, branches like reaching fingers. Every few years, someone arrives. Historians, ghost hunters, travelers drawn by an unexplainable pull. They seek the story of Clara, though few know her name. She's called the seamstress or the silent one. Some say she was a witch, others a martyr. Strange relics remain. In 1962, a man named Thomas Reed bought the land for timber. Clearing debris, he found a trunk under the sewing room floorboards with fabric scraps labeled with burial record names, stained with oily smudges. A worker's rash persisted for weeks. Reed abandoned the project. In 1985, students from Nashville visited. One, Rachel Brooks, wrote of a quiet house waiting and dreams of a woman in shadows. She never returned. Local archives hold little. Plantation records destroyed in the war, a doctor's journal ending in 1853, a death ledger with extra names, a mistress's letter trembling with, "She watches while we sleep." Nearby black communities speak of a spirit punishing cruelty slowly, leaving thread spools on windowsills. A preacher's attempt to exorcise failed after 3 days. He said, "Some wounds never close." Some dismiss Clara as fiction, but the garments persist. Fragments appear at sales, beautifully stitched, aged yet intact. Collectors report unease, numb fingertips, illness. No science explains it. The plantation remains untouched, overtaken by trees, foundation buckling. In the sewing room, scratched into stone, Clara, a name, a warning. The wind sounds like thread through fabric.